Good afternoon. I'm David Green. I'm the Deputy Chief with the Fire Rescue Department, the county's emergency manager. We're streaming to you live today from the county's Emergency Operations Center. We're tracking the severe weather that's supposed to be impacting our area this afternoon. And I'm joined today by Captain Janet Laney, Assistant Chief Marty Stallings, Battalion Chief Joey Campbell, and Battalion Chief Scott Feather. These folks, you're going to hear from them in a few minutes, but they serve as section chiefs and the incident management team, and they're part of the group that's been managing both the tornado damage that we've experienced and the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been going on for a while now. So these folks have been working for 38 days straight without a break, and I'm privileged to serve alongside each of them. Before we get into the questions, wanted to mention something about the tornado damage and the assistance that's available from FEMA. We've had a number of calls to the EOC regarding what financial assistance is available from FEMA. Yesterday, FEMA and the South Carolina Emergency Management Division visited our county. They surveyed several of the damage areas, and we haven't received a declaration yet. That'll probably happen next week if it occurs. And yesterday they were evaluating the damage to see if we would qualify for individual assistance. And individual assistance is for citizens, but it's tiered, so there's a number of layers. First, it's possible that we could get an individual assistance declaration, which means that individual assistance grants would be available to citizens. One thing everybody needs to keep in mind is that FEMA's individual assistance is not designed to make you whole. What that means is the maximum amount that FEMA gives out in its individual assistance program is $35,500. And less than 1% of people qualify for that amount. So not very many people get that much money. But if you would imagine living in an $80,000 or $100,000 home, if it was completely destroyed, you still would only get $35,000. So it wouldn't be enough to completely replace your home. The average individual assistance grant that a citizen receives is usually around $1,500. And typically it's designed to close the gap between what your insurance deductible would be. So FEMA will tell you that insurance is certainly the first step. If you have that, you don't need to wait on a FEMA evaluation or a FEMA declaration to talk to your insurance company. If you've had damage at your home and you have insurance, you should talk to your insurance company immediately and file a claim. If individual assistance is not available for you, or we don't get a declaration, it is possible that we would get an SBA declaration. SBA is the Small Business Administration, and you've probably heard some information about the SBA loans being available for small businesses during the COVID-19 pandemic. But it's possible we would get an SBA declaration for the tornado outbreak, and those loans would be available to citizens as well. SBA loans are very low interest. They're probably 2 to 3% interest at this point, and they would be available to you to repair your home. It is a loan, so you would have to repay the loan to FEMA, and you would have to use it specifically for the improvements or repairs to your home. So those two layers there are available if in fact we get a declaration. And again, let me reiterate that although they were here yesterday in Colleton County evaluating the damage, they have to make a declaration for the entire state. So they visited Hampton, I believe, 2 days ago. They were in Oconee for a couple of days. So they have to evaluate each county that had damage from the tornadoes last Monday on April 13th before they can make a determination as to whether we get a declaration or not. If you still have any more questions after that, please contact us here at the EOC. The number is 843-549-5632. And before we get into the questions, I wanted to talk to each of the folks here at the table with me, and they can tell you about their section, what their responsibilities are, and kind of what they do. If you have a question that you'd like to have answered while we're live streaming here, the URL to get to submit a question is www.colletonfire.com/question. Again, that's colletonfire.com/question. That's without the S. So we'll start off with the operations section, and Since the Chief Stallings, you're typically the section chief over the operations section. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do with it?
So operations pretty much coordinates with all of the people that are out in the field. So we have ESF 3, which is Emergency Service Function 3. That coordinates with the South Carolina Department of Transportation, Collin County Public Works, Solid Waste, Waldoboro Sewer and Water, Eddystone Sewer and Water, the airport, and any of the rail companies. And it just coordinates all of our efforts to to move debris, trees, and anything else that those divisions could help. We also coordinate with the ESF 4, 9, and 10, which is the fire, search and rescue, and hazmat. Those are Collier County Fire Rescue, Walterboro Fire Department, Eddystone Beach Fire Department, and South Carolina Forestry Commission. And that pretty much entails anything to do with fire, rescue, or hazmat. Operations also uses ESF 8, which is made up of the medical, which is also part of fire rescue with the ambulances, Colleton Medical Center, South Carolina DHEC, and our local helicopter care flight. And then we also coordinate with ESF 13, which is all of our local law enforcement and state law enforcement. The Sheriff's Office, Walterboro PD, SLED, Coroner's Office, Cottageville PD, Eddystone Beach, SLED, DNR. We coordinate with those for any law enforcement needs the county may need. We also coordinate with the ESF 17, which is animal control. If there's any sort of issue with the animals, during a disaster, that we can coordinate with those folks and get that taken care of. But operations pretty much is dealing with everything that's happening out in the field and coordinating those efforts.
Thank you, Mark. So right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been trying to work as virtually like a lot of people, and the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center here, we have very few people in it right now. During our normal hurricane response, it's usually filled with a lot of the people that Chief Stallings just mentioned, that from different law enforcement, different fire agencies, public works, etc. Let's go to the planning section, and it's usually supervised by either Battalion Chief Campbell or Battalion Chief Feather. So Chief Campbell, if you want to start, you can kind of talk about what you do and who you supervise and coordinate with.
Thank you, Chief Green. ESF 5 planning is really the central data hub of any incident management team. And as we start moving towards these instances, we have to do a lot of reconnaissance, grab a lot of data from different sources, trying to find the most reliable data, interpret it, place it inside of some type of document. We call that the incident action plan. And we work integrally with operations, logistics, the incident commander himself, the emergency council, to formulate plans that then can be written down, categorized, and then pushed out for operations to carry out. We supervise several different areas in that. One is Emergency Service Function 12, which is utilities. So we're in contact with our energy partners oftentimes, and that are from our area and even from surrounding areas. ESF 14, which is damage and recovery. And when we think about a hurricane over the last few years, we've been lucky that we haven't had much damage and recovery as far as a component of our response. And so with the hurricane, with the tornadoes we recently had on the 13th, we really got to kind of flex our damage and recovery muscle, working with our county engineers, our county administration, the assessor's office, and getting all of the assessments done and all of the where we need, where's our damage, the Walterboro City government, town of Eddystone Beach government, getting that information from them, what they need to help recover, what they need to help get them back into business, so to speak. And into that, we also work in ESF 24, and that's our local business and industry. We have partnerships with several businesses that what do they need to keep functioning and to operate? What can we do to help serve them in that capacity? So one of the things that we consistently do is we spend hours and hours, oftentimes, and several of us will do it together to just take all of this information that we're getting from all of these sources and moving it around and getting it to a point of usefulness. And that's the planning section's major job, is to drive the resources of the incident to operations and moving through logistics to get that done. So.
Thank you, Joey. I think the biggest thing they do is that incident action plan, which Chief Campbell mentioned. That's sort of the playbook that we use, and it's a living document. It's ever growing, and we've been using incident action plans for the COVID-19 pandemic for 38 days now, and it has grown to be very large. But it serves as a reference for all of our emergency support function partners, all the agencies out there. If they have a question about a specific piece of information, what radio channel we're using, what the medical plan is, what the current closings are, how many power outages there are right now, whatever question they have, they can usually find the answer in the IEP. And of course, that takes a tremendous effort on the planning section part to put that together. Currently, we're sending one out every 24 hours, and we're at operational condition 2 here in the EOC. Again, trying to work virtually as much as we can. But during hurricanes, sometimes when we're at operational condition 1, we're sending an incident action plan out every 12 hours. So that requires twice the effort, and certainly a lot more time has to be spent into compiling all the information necessary for that. So we'll go on to logistics, which is Emergency Support Function 7. And Captain Laney, why don't you tell us who you coordinate with and what you do logistics-wise?
Well, in logistics, I take in resource requests from agencies that lack, like in this incident, PPE, which PPE are like gowns, gloves, surgical masks, the N95s that everyone's heard so much about, and hand sanitizers. And some of our departments are unable to get those, so they send what we call a 213 form in to me, and I place a request in the state for the amount of PPE that they are requiring. If this was a hurricane disaster, we would be requesting like water and MREs through the state. We also request personnel, maybe SLED or National Guard. We have air resources we requested in the past. That would aid in recovery and assessment of damages, as at Edisto Beach. I track and record the resources. I report burn rates of PPE on a daily basis to the state. I also coordinate with the South Carolina Emergency Management. We have a manager for our region and a coordinator for our region. They sit at our table, and we stay in close contact with them on our needs. Also, transportation is at our table. If we have a disaster where we have to open a shelter up, transportation is needed to take people to the shelter, and we also then take them back home if they don't have transportation. We're in close contact with communications, with DSS and American Red Cross. They operate our shelters for us, so we have to supply their needs and any questions that they have. And National Guard and the Parks and Recreation. We work closely with donated goods and volunteers. Chief.
Thank you, Janet. And I think the last emergency support function we haven't mentioned is public information, and that's really a group effort. We really all try to get together to make sure that we're getting accurate information. It's very easy today to go online in particular and find information that someone has found or someone has published, and it may not be accurate. So again, we encourage you to get your information from official sources, and definitely if you see something that doesn't sound right, consider what the source is that you got it from, and then don't hesitate at all to reach out to us to confirm that information, because that's what we're doing here, is trying to compile all that information to ensure that it's accurate for you, our citizens. So thank you all very much. We only have a couple of questions so far, but the first one is, as washing your hands is often recommended, does soap kill the virus? And I think we've discussed this in the past, and soap doesn't technically kill the virus, but it does help to adhere anything that's on your hands, bacteria, if the virus is suspended in droplets that you may have picked up by touching a surface, would help adhere that to the soap. That's why washing your hands is so important, to get all of that off of your hands where you're not transferring it either to another surface or to your eyes, your nose, or mouth if you happen to touch your face or something like that. So I guess the answer there is no, it doesn't kill the virus necessarily, but it's helpful to use soap to adhere anything that's on your hands, to be able to remove it when you're washing your hands thoroughly. The next question, Chief Campbell, I'll give you this one. It's explain contact tracing, and does our county do this, and is it in violation of the HIPAA law? So maybe talk about HIPAA law first, I guess. But,
well, HIPAA, of course, is the Health Information Privacy and Portability Act of 1996. It has been reintroduced several times since then, but it protects our health information. It does really two things. It protects our health information from people who don't have a need to know, and it allows you to flawlessly move your health information from one provider to another. So it really does two things. And the HIPAA laws are really complicated, and not to get too deep in the weeds with this one, as far as what happens when HIPAA applies. HIPAA applies to any individual or patient that their protected health information, so any identifying information of that patient, and that could be obviously name, date of birth, social security number, but even identifying marks, so scars, tattoos, things like that. Even hair color could be technically protected health information, identifiers, basically. So we can't release that as a medical provider, as a covered entity. The term covered entity is basically any medical or healthcare provider. We can't release that to non-entities without certain permissions, obviously permission from the patient that received care, or under certain circumstances for treatment reasons. So we can tell the hospital what we did as far as treatment goes. Payment, we can tell the insurance companies what we did, or any other medical operations. So that's what HIPAA is. And as far as contact tracing goes, we do not perform contact tracing in Colleton County. And when I say we, Colleton County Fire Rescue Emergency Management does not. That is a function of DHEC, the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. They're the ones that if someone tests positive for a reportable disease, and that is including COVID-19, they will be the ones making those contacts, who that person was in contact with, for how long, how many days ago, and all of that. And with that, the Department of Health, DHEC, is required to maintain that confidentiality. That is not shared information. It's not even shared back to us at the local level, simply to keep it secure. So your information is your information, and no one else gets it. So that's kind of where that comes from.
And I actually do not see any more questions coming in. Do we have any more coming in? Okay. Well, appreciate y'all joining us this afternoon. Want to remind you to keep your eyes on your weather apps on your phones, your weather radio. Keep it close by if you have it this afternoon, because we're expecting some severe weather and the potential for a lot of rainfall, even tornadoes and hail. So definitely keep your eye on those outlets this afternoon. And if you have any questions regarding the severe weather, the recovery, or the COVID-19 pandemic, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Call us at the Emergency Operations Center's number. It's 843-549-5632. And thank you all again for joining us.